So, what I'm going to do today, folks, is that since you must be aware that yesterday the economic survey was released, and today the budget will be released. Now, economic survey, for most of you who know what economic survey is, basically gives you a picture into what has happened in the previous financial year. And this time economic survey was released because of the impending elections. It was released in July, but usually it is released on the 31st of January, and on the 1st of February you have the budget that is announced. But this time around it was an interim budget, and now you have the full year's budget that will be presented. And you have this survey which basically tells you what has happened in the economy over 1 year, but it is also a policy document in the sense that it tells you what are the issues, what are the good points in the Indian economy, and how it needs to improve. So all of these policy issues become a part of something that you can write in your answers. So people say that why should we study economic survey, why should we study budget, because there's no direct question in it. It will give you immense amount of value addition for different parts. It will also give you the lateral thinking that this all can be included, and this is how bureaucrats write, so this is what is also expected out of you. So it gives you a template of bureaucratic work as well. And then the third point is that it will anyways help you in your overall economic affairs, linking one part with the other part, and then also in your interviews. Once I mean the final step is interviews, and you will be asked a ton of questions on economics. So especially if you have an economics background, so we would expect a lot from you in that respect. Now, coming to why today's budget matters, this is a very important article which basically breaks down it for anyone who is not from economics background. So the interim budget was announced this year, and the full budget will be announced tomorrow. Now, what does the budget tell you? Now, budget basically tells you about two three things, or there are some certain jargons that we are going to anyways discuss in tomorrow's class. So but the first jargon is capital expenditure, tax buoyancy. Now there is another term called tax elasticity. You should be aware of what is tax buoyancy, what is tax elasticity. Then debt making capital receipts, non debt making capital receipts. What is fiscal deficit, for revenue deficit? Effective revenue deficit is not a term that we use anymore, but we use something called as effective capital expenditure. So these are terms that are important. But in general, what does budget tell you? It tells the public three things. What is the income? How much income is the government raising as compared to previous year? We'll talk about these figures very soon. Then what is the expenditure that the government is doing? This is something also that I'll deal with. And how much is the government going to borrow between the spending and the borrowing, which is also called as the fiscal deficit. So this is something that you start off with an year, that this is what you're going to do, which is called budget estimates. And the end, you have something called as revised estimates, which we'll discuss later on what that revised estimate is. And then you have something called as actuals. But why does the budget matter for an average individual? Something very basic, that why should it matter to me, that what is happening? Like I was in a saloon yesterday, so I was telling that person that do my hair very quickly and my beard very quickly. I need to read the paper, tomorrow the budget is coming. So this guy asked me, the barber asked me कि सर बजट से हमें क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है. तो पॉइंट इज़ कि हमें भी फ़र्क पड़ता है. एवरी वन इज़ अफेक्टेड, बिकॉज लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड दैट the state doesn't have any money of its own. Either it is money that is borrowed from the public, or it is taxed on the public and then taken it. So यही गवर्नमेंट के resources हैं. So it is either borrowing your savings or taxing you. And ultimately why it matters is that where is it, what are the priorities of the government. Now this is something that I will talk about in today's one of the session that I'm going to have today, that it matters a lot where the government is prioritizing its money. Now, is the government prioritizing more on fancy things? Now, to give you an example, a small example of this. Now suppose you have you have a small shop, small mom and pop store जिसको हम किराने की दुकान बोलते हैं. So if you have a kirana ka dukan and there are two kinds of people that come to you. One is a person in Mercedes and in big cars. You're only prioritizing to that particular person. You're not looking at people who are at the bottom of the pyramid जो line लगा के खड़े हुए हैं. So that tells you priority, that this person is only catering to the rich. Now think of a budget in which there is huge amount of investments and expenditure done on, say, airports, as compared to say railways or ports. That shows you the priority which is very urban bias. That shows you priority which is very elite bias as compared to the others. So these are things that we need to consider, that who does the government tax, how much does it tax, what are the expenditure priorities. Then another thing is government's expenditure on the social sector. That's a very very important marker of development. So how much does the government spend as a percentage of education and health, and who does it subsidize? Is it a blank subsidy, or is it a targeted subsidy towards a particular individual or a class of individual? So all of these are very important things. And how does the budget impact the Indian economy? It basically impacts through two routes, that who is being taxed at what particular rate, and where the government spends. So these two as a combination basically will explain you everything with respect to the budget. Now, five things to look forward on the budget. Tax revenues. So tax buoyancy is basically, if your income increases by say 1%, by how much is your tax income increasing? So we've trying to target this for a country. It is percentage change in tax revenue upon percentage change in GDP. So we want our taxes to be buoyant, that 1% change in GDP can result into much more taxes. Then expenditure towards rural areas and businesses, again a health mark. Then subsidy outgo, which is a huge outgo for India. How much are we spending there? Then fiscal deficit. How much are you borrowing? We are anyways have borrowed after COVID a lot, and now how are we controlling this? Our fiscal deficit target is 5.1% for 24-25 as per the interim budget. And the overall philosophy of the budget, what is that? So read about this particular article. It's a good article. Then the second article that you should definitely read is takeaways from the economic survey, and we are going to cover some portions of the economic survey even in our sessions. And I'm also going to give you some kind of summaries for that. But the thing is that even if you're not able to read the entire economic survey, what you should do is read the first chapter of the economic survey, which gives you a window into the entire economy, and then read the preface of every chapter, which will give you again a window into each chapter. At least do that work. Rest can be managed. Even if you don't get time, you get the rhythm of the economic survey, and then you can take things forward. So let's talk about economic survey. What does it say? Now it says that despite the growth that we have had in the previous financial year, now you should already know that the growth in Indian economy in 2023-24 was 8.2%. But despite that, there are key challenges. The first challenge is that of FDI. Now in a global environment that is there, how can we get how can we get more funds? And especially in an environment where there is inflation, you cannot reduce the rate of interest, and if you cannot reduce the rate of interest, people will not be likely to come to develop your country. So this is something that is a problem. And then geopolitical uncertainties are huge. Now we will talk about something with respect to Israel today itself, and if you are not able to read that article, please read it by yourself. We'll try to do that. And you already know from what is happening in the world. In fact, if you have read the paper yesterday, there was a news with respect to now that Israel has attacked Yemen, because Yemen hosts a group called Houthi rebels. So and it is a government run by Houthis. And Yemen, and Yemen had also launched, these Houthi rebels had also launched a direct attack on Israel. So which shows that initially this was just a Israel and Palestine and Gaza issue, which expanded. Now Israel is also targeting Jordan as well. And the other thing is that now you have issues with respect to a country which is quite far away from you, which is firing missiles on you. So these are global uncertainties that are surrounding the world, and in that your global growth can be low, and if your global growth is low, you cannot expect much FDI. Then China challenge is a huge challenge. We are still importing, we are still dependent on China. We are going to talk about a lot of articles with respect to this, but we are extremely dependent on China on a number of things, and we do not want to give it that leverage, especially in certain critical areas. We cannot be held to ransom. So this is still a challenge for us. Then a big threat that we are going to talk today is the AI threat, and the survey gives due importance to this particular topic, that with the respect of with this evolution of generative AI, what is going to be the impact on the labor market, and how are we then going to create these and absorb these people. We are going to talk about that. India right now needs to create 80 lakh jobs every year. So 78 point lakh jobs are needed almost every year to absorb the labor force. And where is this labor force coming from? Labor force is typically going to come from two sources: the new entrants to the labor force, and people who are going to leave agriculture and then come to labor force. And we are going to talk about the fact that there is only one way to sustain all of this. And employment is a major problem in the economy right now. So there is only one way to resolve this, is to have some kind of a mix of employment linked incentives, which we'll talk about in today's class. That just like we have PLI scheme, can we have something called as employment linked incentive? And the second thing that we need to have is have a focus on agriculture, because with the way that AI is moving, the job opportunities that we can create in manufacturing and in services are going to be limited, are going to be very high skilled, and therefore we need to go back to our roots. And in fact, this is exactly what is written here, that trade protectionism, resource holding, excess capacity, dumping, onshoring production, advent of AI, and narrowing the scope of countries to squeeze growth from manufacturing and services. Therefore we have to turn to our conventional wisdom on it. We have to turn the conventional wisdom to its on its head, basically the reversal of Lewis model for people who understand economics. And we have to return back to our roots, and have these farming practices, and then boost farmers income, and then food processing. So all of this is one of the reasons. Then another topic that we are going to discuss in detail, I'm going to give you these summaries now. That now what has happened in the last few years, and we already know this, is that since 2019, especially in that dream budget of 2019, Nirmala Sitharaman had reduced the corporate tax from somewhere around 30% to an effective rate of 21-22%. Now typically, why was this done? This was done so that the corporates can earn a large amount of profit, and then with their large amount of profit they can increase their production as well as increase their investment and increase their employment. But this is what we are seeing, and to give you a context of what we are learning in markets in the optional, is that all these firms have resorted to getting supernormal profit. And we will read this line, that all these firms are swimming in profit. Their profit has quadrupled, but their hiring and compensation has not. So they are not passing on the benefits to the employees, as well as they are not picking up the corporate investment. And one of the reasons why they are not picking up the corporate investment is the fact that this thing, your private consumption in the last 1 year has slowed down. And if you remember the figures that we have been quoting from the newspaper, in the last fiscal year, our private final consumption expenditure was only at 4.4%. Our growth rate was 8.2%, but our private final consumption expenditure, the increase in consumption was only 4.4%. So if people are not going to consume, then what will happen? That the corporates will say, who will I make my products for? If they know that they will not be able to sell their products, they will reduce their investment, and therefore you have this problem of this private investment. And employment, as I told you that I've already given you this figure, is 78.5 lakh jobs annually. And we are also going to talk about a very comedy article by someone who represents Congress with respect to a report which RBI has given. A very, very interesting article, folks. So we are going to talk about that. Data deficiency. Another major problem in governance is data deficiency. If you do not have good amount of data, then how are you going to how are you going to assess the health of the economy? So we have huge issues there. And lifestyle disadvantages, this is a major topic, and I want you to read this chapter properly. Even the survey says that right now we have a very deadly cocktail in the society, which is social media, high screen time, sedentary habits, unhealthy food, lethal mix that can undermine public health and productivity and diminish the economic potential. So that's why you need to also change the kind of social media you consume. I am okay with you consuming, say, LinkedIn. At least you learn something. I'm okay with you consuming, say, Twitter, which gives you very, very witty things to see. But I am not okay with you scrolling on other social media apps like Instagram and others. So again, the other thing is, how much screen time do you have? Do you have active habits or not? Or are you only sitting on the chair and table? And that will one of your classmates from economics optional is having a health issue. Now I keep saying that because of stress and because you are sitting in the same position, you're going to have a lot of problems. Make sure your lifestyle is not sedentary. I mean preparing for civil services does not mean that you start working like a corporate slave, looking at screens and looking at books 24/7. So that is something that needs to change. And unhealthy food habits on top of it. You are spending too much time on a particular position sitting, and then you are eating popcorn along with it while studying, is something which is going to harm you enormously. Then recommendation, job creation by the private sector, lifestyle changes in the public sector, in the private sector, farm sector savior, as I've already told you, and removing these regulatory bottlenecks, which we will call as license, inspector and compliance, LIC. We'll talk about this as well. We have to remove that, and building the state capacity. So these are two important articles. Then I'll just quickly explain this article to you. A very, very important thing that has happened now. Earlier, what was the case was that through multiple government orders in 1966, 1970 and 1980, it was decided by the government, and it was decided by the human resource department, which is the DOPT, Department of Personnel and Training. Now it basically decided that there are certain institutions which are political in nature, and if an institution or an organization is political in nature, then you cannot join it as a civil servant. As a member of the government, you cannot espouse the cause of a political party or a political cause. Now this is something which these three official memorandums had talked about. Now what has happened is, day before yesterday, the government, on the 19th of June, or on the 9th of July, the government has come up with a circular which says that RSS is no longer is no longer a part of this particular office memorandum. That means anyone who is a government employee can now participate and be a member of RSS, which was earlier not allowed under the DOPT rules. Now let us understand what does the circular say. The circular say that, and we'll talk about this Rule 5 of Central Civil Services Conduct Rules. Now this is something which is very important. Please make a note of it, that while you are reading ethics, this and even governance, this rules will be very important. Civil Services Conduct Rules 1964 and All India Conduct Rules 1968. These are very important rules. And in fact, even before that, you had these government servants conduct rules 1949, which was actually made by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and all of them basically used to say that it prohibited government employees to join any organization which was political in nature. Now, and these were the rules basically. If you see, Rule 5 of 1964 is basically taking part in politics and elections, which is a straightforward no for you, for any civil servant. And there is one more. And see, it basically mentions the 1970 order basically mentions that anyone who is the part of RSS, Jamaat, Islami, Anand Marga, CPI, ML, and were all of them were banned. And again in 1980, it basically talks about the same. It talks about the same thing. Then we have talked about this. Rules. Let's talk about the rules. What happens in the violation of rules? Rule 5.3 basically says that any if any question arises whether the political party or organization takes part in politics, the government will decide whether RSS is a political party or not. And this is what it has done. In July 9, it has said RSS is not a political organization, and therefore it will not attract Rule 5 subclause 1. Basically making the 1980 circular ineffective, but still having bodies like Jamaat-e-Islami as organizations which are characterized as political. So this is something that is there. You can now read all of this. And the state, this is just for the central government. The state government have their own approaches, like in Himachal Pradesh, in Madhya Pradesh, and in Chhattisgarh. Previously, RSS thing was removed. And then you can read a particular case where the government had also said that even if an employee was a part of RSS before, that cannot lead to his termination. So this is important, and especially they read this particular line. This is a very important line to read. Then again, Harris moves closer to Democratic ticket. Now you should be aware what has happened in US. I am going to go forward with certain other news. First, FY25 sees growth seen at 6.5 to 7%. Now they have taken a kind of a conservative approach towards economic growth. Last time around, they also posted some growth, but the growth was 1.5% higher than what they had expected. Last year also they said somewhere around 6.5%, but the actual growth rate was 8.2%. So they are a bit, basically they are saying that we are going to be conservative while suggesting our growth rates. And but there are still huge problems that one can see that can come. Or the survey: escalation of geopolitics, supply dislocation, higher prices, inflationary issues. All of these are headwinds that the government can see. And but Indian economy is on the strong wicket, but at the same point of time, we've not been able to create jobs, and this is what is being mentioned, that we need to create these jobs and use these existing schemes to create these jobs. So read about this. Now, one of the most important articles is India must plug itself into China's supply chain to attract investment. Now, this article is suggesting that there is a strategy which is called as China plus one strategy. Now, all these countries, Vietnam, Mexico, Taiwan, Korea, are benefiting from China plus strategy as countries are looking to move forward from China. They're moving from either into onshoring or friendshoring. Now, you should be aware of what is friendshoring and what is onshoring. Now, right now, what is offshoring? Suppose US wants phone production. Then what it does, if it says to China that you can make phones very cheaply, we are going to make all phones in your particular country. This is called offshoring. But because of COVID, we realized that if there is a bottleneck in the global supply chain, then we are left with no phones, we are left with no chips. So then the concept came that we need to diversify from China, and we need to have another source, so which is called as China plus one. And then there was a strategy called as onshoring. Either make the product in within your country, or friend shoring, that make your products in a particular country where which with which you have friendly relations, where the relationship will not turn sour. So we need to find this, and we have a huge trade deficit with China. We need to find the right balance between importing goods from China and importing FDI from China. Now, uh, to plug this, to boost Indian manufacturing, and plug the global supply chain, it is inevitable that India plugs itself into the Chinese supply chain, so that just like where things are, how things are made in China, you can ask firms in China to then make products in India, because countries, all these countries want China plus one strategy. We should encourage investment from China, and instead of just importing products from China. So India faces two choices to benefit from China plus one strategy. Either it can integrate into China supply chain, or promote foreign direct investment from China, which seems more promising. Companies can export from this, and then use it for further exporting to countries like say US. Now this requires a move away from Press Note 3. Now Press Note basically 3 in 2020 said that all land bordering countries of India, all the FDI that is going to come, it will be from government route, and the rest can be from your automatic route. Now what is this FDI with government route and automatic route? Automatic route basically means, suppose I am a person from UAE. If I want to invest in India's education sector, I can directly come and invest in India's education sector, and after I've come, I can then inform the government that, boss, I have come into India. But that is called as automatic route. But suppose I am a Pakistani or a Chinese, now I want to invest in Indian education sector. Now because of Press Note 3, any particular investment that is coming from a land bordering country will attract a government route. Therefore I need to take the permission of the government before coming to India and invest. So this is an important article, that's why this was important. Then this is the thing that I was telling you, that the corporate sector financial and non-financial profits, if you see profit before tax, this thing in lakh crores is 20 lakh crores, that has increased from say 11 lakh crores, that is almost double, see, or almost 4 times from FY20. But if you see the employment has only moved from 16, I think this should be million, to 24 million. They have not given the numbers. So this is something which shows that the increase in jobs has not been this thing commensurate with the increase in incomes, and which we say that the corporates are swimming in supernormal profit. Then two articles. One is yeah, you can read this particular article, which basically says that we also I'll teach you this article as well, because this is important for MSMEs. Now this article says that we need to do deregulation and with respect to our MSMEs. Now MSMEs, we have been talking too much about MSMEs, that how they employ, they give you almost 50% of your GDP, and they are the largest employer after agriculture. So and we've also seen that the kind of MSMEs, the employment has gone down in MSMEs, but the number of MSMEs have increased, and these unorganized enterprises, the value addition has actually reduced in the last few years. We've all read this in the last in the last 1 month when we've been reading newspapers, that's the benefit out of reading newspapers. See, I'm not making notes, but because I've been reading newspapers, I know what is the trend that is happening. I have a broad trend, and I can write 4 5 points with respect to that. So that gets into your muscle memory, and then you can utilize that in your mains answer writing. So now coming to the MSMEs. Now there is a one major concern, which is respect to license, inspection, and compliance. The LIC requirements that the state government and the local governments impose. Now see, when we talk about operation of an MSME, it is not just central government, it is also state government, it is also local government, which might have restrictions. Now in India, 1,000 square meter floor space can only employ a maximum of 82 workers. Just a second. Um, if you see, I mean, in India, what happens is that what we do is, suppose you have a plot of 1,000 square meters. Now it tells you, Indian government basically tells you that you can only employ, say, around 30-40 people in that particular space. But if you follow the regulatory standard of Malaysia or Singapore or Hong Kong or even China, then you can get 80 workers there. So you have these onerous kind of labor laws. But again, labor laws is a problem because it comes under the concurrent list and not the central list. So therefore each state needs to see what kind of labor laws does it want. And then it also talks about that how India has gained from the experience of others. And this is where Make in India Mittelsland this thing program was there, which was a collaboration between India and Germany to encourage the small and medium enterprises in Germany to basically invest and manufacture in India. Now we need some kind of policy like that. That how can we how can we come with our own Mittelland kind of policy where we can have these MSMEs to perform well and then invest in other countries as well. So something like this is needed. Then AI casts a huge pall on of uncertainty on the workers. Please read about this article. This article basically says that there's going to be a huge impact of AI, especially the generative AI, in terms of your job performance as well as job availability. And you need constant reskilling these days. And there are certain industries where which will have a major impact on employment. For example, the BPO industry, the call center industry will completely vanish because of AI agents coming up. So this is something that we need to be very cognizant about. Then yeah, this is the article, folks, that I was talking about, Praveen Chakravarti. This is one of the most it's a very hilarious article that I read. Basically, it starts with the fact that RBI had recently announced that we have created in the last 4 years we have created around 80 million jobs. Now and there are no job problems in the country. Now this is in direct contrast with what the anecdotal evidence says. Now anecdotal, what is anecdotal evidence? What we are seeing is anecdotal evidence. What we see, what we feel, what we can perceive. And the anecdotal evidence basically says that 5 million youth lined up for 60,000 job vacancies in UP. Or when 34 million people basically ask for the NREGA work, which basically sees that employment is not available. Or when people are queuing up for wars in Israel and Russia, again that shows that there are lack of employment opportunities that are there now. This is in contrast. Now this is where I really like this particular line, that how RBI has turned this shoddy report. Why? Because he says that Modi could be given a Nobel Prize. Why a Nobel Prize? Because RBI shows that 50 million high quality jobs were created between in manufacturing and services between FY 19 and 23, where the GDP growth rate was 5%. But when the GDP growth rate was 11% in the previous 5 years, only 20 million jobs were created. So basically, it's saying that you have half the growth and doubled the this thing your employment. So which basically says that, which basically deserves a Nobel Prize. Then now this is something that we need to see, that over the years India has also launched the Make in India program, which was launched in 2015, and which says that by 2000 I think the aim was 2022, we need to increase our manufacturing, which was around 16% at that point of time, to around 25% of GDP. Now instead of increasing to this thing, we have reduced it to 14%. And also we also see that the government has announced in 2019 tax cuts to the private sector, but it has only led to corporate revenues and profits, rather than actual changes on the ground. Then PLI scheme has also not created enough jobs, and what we need is an employment linked incentives. giving money to corporates and incentivizing them to hire more, and only if they hire more they will get more incentives. So the outlook should change from making output. Production linked incentives basically says that you should create more output, but what you should be concerned about is creating more employment. And we can have technology built in Aadhaar based payroll to see who is getting employed, and also to see that people will also misuse this system. Now suppose I have 20 employees. Now what I will do is I'll fire all 20 employees under employee incentive. I will then rehire all of them and take subsidy from the government. So these are something that we need to see. So we need to tilt the balance towards workers as well, because this is an important concern for social harmony, and this is also something that is seen by US, UK, Germany, Australia, which all of them have some kind of employment incentive programs. So this is a good article that you can read. Then we're going to cover two more articles. I'm going to briefly cover this article, and then you can read. This is completely on climate change. You can read this particular article, and then I want you to read a major article which is on this. This I have already covered. If you read this article, you will see that I have already covered this particular article. I'll quickly go through this Israel issue. What does this talk about? Now, the survey signals for the budget. Now, economic survey basically talks about, see, as I told you that last time also the economic survey had posted a growth that India will grow by say 6.5%, but it actually grew by 8.2%. Now what has also happened is that we have a higher growth rate, we have improved tax collection, and we've got improved extra dividend from the RBI as well now, and we have less current account deficit. On the top of it, our PMI index is doing well, and the balance sheets of corporates are doing well now, which basically says that we are in a very good space. But you have huge headwinds, as we have talked about. The headwind of global uncertainty, geopolitical risk, high food inflation, climate change, and the slow recovery in private investment are major issues. Now the government the government basically government has a lot of fiscal space right now, fiscal, which is also called as fiscal elbow room. But at the same point of time, it is unlikely to spurge all of it on boosting the economy, because of the fact that it needs to reduce its debt. But at the same point of time, what we also need to be cognizant about is that the private consumption expenditure is only 4.4, increased by 4.4%. Therefore what we need is to boost the incomes of the individuals so that they consume more. If they consume more, then the manufacturers or the companies will produce more, and then therefore requiring that they will have to invest more. So that cycle needs to happen, and therefore the government needs to invest in increasing the personal income of people as well. Now so this is the survey notes that the investments are largely driven by government, and the household and private corporate sector has yet to take the baton, despite the fact that it has earned a huge amount of profit. Then we need to invest heavily in our logistics and in our development, because to compete in terms of exports with our Asian competitors. And that's why I say that railways and ports and roadways are very important areas that we need to spend on. And I already told you about the private consumption, which grew by only 4%, and we need to invest in these as well, so that they can either the employment increases or their income increases, so that then they can spend, and if they spend, then this thing can happen. Then employment creation and bridging the skill gap, especially in manufacturing, is going to be huge, because of the coming of the age of AI. And then food inflation is a huge concern. And finally, we need to kick off reforms in land, labor and agriculture, but the problem is that all of them lie under the concurrent list. The government alone by itself cannot take any major decision here. Then this particular article is talking about that we need to while we are growing, we also, and this is a chapter which basically talks about climate change and life mission, which basically says that we have not been the reason for this thing. We have not been the reason for climate change. Historically, we already know that the developing countries, the developed countries are the reasons why why there is a huge amount of this climate change impact. at the same point of time, we need to accept the fact that yes, climate change is there, and we need to somehow participate. And because all of this we are part of this global governance, we need to participate to keep the global temperatures at 1.5 degree above pre-industrial level. But we already know for the last 2-3 years this is being breached, and this is the hottest year, and we have already seen what are the impacts that are there. But in India, being an economy which will grow, I mean, the next 30 years, we also need to understand the fact that we will have our own needs in terms of growth, which will require some amount of space of pollution as well. But the pathways that we can target are climate adaptation and climate mitigation, how we can go about in the next few years to reduce our carbon footprint. And we've had climate pledges that are there, but there are huge number of loans there instead of grants. There are huge conditions, and in there as well you have profit maximization rather than green intensification. So, and then please read about new collective quantified goals, what these are if you have not read about this. And then the prime minister had launched, had talked about mission life, sustainable, I mean how do you live in a sustainable lifestyle. So read about this particular article, chapter 13 of the economic survey. It's a good chapter, and at least read the executive summary of it. Now, coming to the final part, now this particular article says, just a second, folks. Now, this particular article says that there, between this ongoing conflict in Gaza and Israel, there are now huge complexities that have been created because of what Israel has done. And because I mean, it had gained a lot of sympathy after October 7th attack. But now that sympathy has gone, and the way, the kind of collateral damage that it has created on the citizens of Gaza, and the humanitarian cause that has been created, and we see that the war is now spreading to Lebanon, to Syria, and to Yemen. So which basically are now impacting the entire world economy, because Israel is also involved, and Iran is also involved. So the entire West Asia is now involved, and then it has caused risk to the global sea lines of trade as well. So this is something which is very problematic. And the International Court of Justice has issued a very significant advisory opinion on Israel's occupation. And there is unanimity in breach of the obligations and international laws in every respect. And therefore they need to have a nuanced approach towards this entire issue. Then apart from that, while violating all of these international law and human rights, we also see that the conflict has now increased, and it become a huge problem throughout the world. And it has shown during the drone attack that the Houthis had done. And it was said that this will make Israel stronger. But if the military was the answer, then Israel should not have been attacked by Yemen. But the fact that Yemen had attacked Israel is basically that through war and through this radicalism, Israel cannot cut down on its problem. So read about this entire article. It's a good article with respect to with respect to the entire thing that is happening in West Asia. Now, Biden boards down is another article that you can read. This entire thing I've already taught you while I was teaching you other things in the newspaper. So now that's all. If you want to read, you can read these two as well. But this is more or less our entire paper, folks. Yes. So this is about our paper for today. Now I want you to read this paper properly. It's a very important paper for people who have economics as their optional. There are a number of news, and again for today's for tomorrow's paper, you need to buy not just the Indian Express, also buy the Hindu, also buy the Business Standard. So at least 3 newspapers you should have, whether you're a GS student or an optional student. 3 newspapers that you should have for tomorrow, because the budget will be announced today and we need to do a deeper analysis. So you need to have the Hindu, you need to have the Express, and you need to have the Business Standard. These are the three newspapers that we can see. If you have time, we can also see Economic Times. But overall, this is how we should approach our budget, and it is going to give you a lot of ancillary stuff to write in, say, one part of the answer, the other part of the answer, use of AI, then what is happening in global value chains, what is happening in employment. So all of these become part of I mean, if even if they are not part directly from the budget, but these become part of the narrative that the survey and the budget are building. So with this, I will stop the particular session. I wish you all the best for today, and I will see you tomorrow in the budget session at 5:30 at Mitras. All right, folks. All the best.